everybody. Welcome back to the Underwater Photography Show. As always, I'm Matthew Sullivan.
And I'm Alex Mustard.
And before we get going today, I want to give a shout out to my buddy Gabe, who made this cool new shirt. So if anybody likes cool, funny underwater swag, hit up Gabe, shallowseasgallery.com, Shallow Seas Gallery on Instagram. And speaking of Instagram, today we have Inspirational Instagram number 15 for you guys. We really enjoy doing these. And we get a lot of good feedback that people find other photographers through us doing this. So we're going to keep doing them because we like looking at cool pictures and talking about them. So with that, here we go.
I'll pull them up. Right.
And as usual with these, it's Alex's duty to pronounce the names. So hopefully there's some confusing ones in here for him today.
Yeah, I have to say, I can't remember if the top line or the second line is the one I should be reading, really. But I think this one, I think the photographer is 0311 MG.
Yeah.
And the dive thing is the location, but I'm not sure.
Yes. Yeah.
If I look at the next one, it's annoyingly when I have the slideshow stuff, I can't read what's behind the thing. I can read Great Barrier Reef. So anyway, yeah. So this first one is by 0311 MG, and it's a tiny little amphipod, cruising on the seabed. This is probably one of those few times where I feel that it's not really a lack of depth of field, but there's a softness to this picture, which normally I can't have too soft a macro shot, but I would like a little bit more reward out of that subject. I really like the frame. It's a really cool little beastie. But it just feels to me like a little bit more contrast, and clarity through that subject. It would really pop. And as it is, I find it, I know where the head is, but I feel a lot of people might struggle to really connect with what they were looking at.
Yeah, I would love to see a real super macro, highly detailed version of this because, like you said, it's a really, really cool critter, and that's why I picked it. It's because I haven't seen. There's lots of amphipod pictures out there, and everyone knows like the ladybugs from Indonesia, but this one's wild looking, and I can't tell what color the stripes on it are, but
it's kind of yellow and blue. Yellow and kind of grey blue. The blue's quite faint, but yeah,
he looks quite armored, and I like the yellow on him, the little antenna. So, and I hadn't seen a picture of this before, so it stood out to me. I think it's from Japan. Yeah. Really cool little bug.
Yeah, I think, a friend of mine, we have the amphipods in the UK, and they're quite skittish. They're a little bit bigger than ladybugs, but they're quite skittish and hard to shoot. But my friend Dan Bolt did a really cool shot with one with his Olympus, where he used the in-camera focus stacking and shot one with focus stacking, and it is so crispy. It's fantastic.
He also has the one of like there's three of them, right?
No, the three of them one is a shot by another photographer in the UK, who I won't name because that is actually three shots of the same individual photoshopped together, which he concealed that information from everyone. When putting it out there in contests and things.
Gotcha.
But actually, if you look carefully, you can see that all three actually do have the same markings. And I think that was how he justified doing it. He's like, well, if you'd look carefully, you would have spotted it was the same individual three times.
Got it.
Which is why I didn't feel I had to declare it. So, but no one spotted that. So,
next one.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Right. The next one is a Lacy rhinopius, and I can't read the first part of I can read W photography, which I guess is at UW.
So it's Jack McKee _ UW photography of a Lacy scorpionfish, like you said, from the Great Barrier Reef.
Yeah, and you used to see a lot of photos of these because you'd get them in not Willindi, in Milne Bay in Papua New Guinea, where lots of people went diving. You got them on the Barrier Reef, and lots of people went diving, or lots of people with cameras went diving in both places. But both places don't attract as many people with cameras these days. So I think photos of these are quite rare these days, and they're not always easy to find when they are common. And so it's really a real treat to see one again. I think it's a great fish. I think you could photograph it in a way where it had a bit better separation from the background. This feels to me a bit like a wider shot, which has had a section cropped out of it. And
Yeah.
as a result, it doesn't get great separation with its surroundings. I think had it been shot exactly this frame, you could probably have worked a bit better separation, which I think for me, given how cool this animal is, however you shoot it, you show off the camouflage. So I'd like to, again, be able to connect a little bit better with this animal than the previous shot. But it is a fantastic looking animal, and it's very nicely shot in terms of the lighting is good. I like the feel of the whole shot. It just feels I'd like a bit more punch.
Yeah, I agree. Now, when you mentioned it, you definitely used to see more of these, more pictures of these guys. And again, maybe it's because Papua New Guinea is hard to get to; it's expensive, and it seems a lot less people are diving in Northern Australia. But this isn't. I picked it mostly because it's an amazing fish,
Mm.
and because you don't see pictures of them anymore, so they stand out. I would love to see like some real nice wider macro portraits of one of these guys,
Yeah,
because I don't know if I've seen one, lit with dramatic lighting, things like that. So it'd be cool to see this Rhinopius lit like some of the other ones you see, just because it's such an exceptional animal and that pattern is crazy. All the filamentation on it is really nice, and that's a fish that I would make a trip just for that to see.
yeah. I've never
um,
seen one and would love to too. So,
yeah,
but
so
yeah, I
maybe
agree
some.
with you, and I think it's there's kind of a message in there that sometimes as traveling photographers we are a bit conservative. It's like, oh, I know such and such goes here, and if they go there, then I should go there too because it must be good. And it turns out to be good. But I think sometimes places kind of drop off the map as far as photographers goes. Other divers are still going there, but it's kind of the photography
Yeah,
crowd is not going there, and as a result, certain species drop off. And it's why while I moan about it with one hand, I do think I like the fact that some of the nature photography competitions do prioritize photographers showing them species they don't normally see as being part of the skill or part of the the what
mm,
they're looking for in the winners. So people
yeah,
actually making the effort to go out and do something a little bit different or shine a light on something that doesn't normally get a light shined on it. I think it is. I do see why the contests reward those shots.
yeah.
Right, it's me who has to move the slides forwards. So here we have a two-tone octopus by Dive and Seek in Florida.
Yep. This is my good buddy Josh, and he immediately texted me after this dive asking if I'd ever seen an octopus do this.
Mm.
And I haven't. I've never seen one so clearly delineate half its body in terms of the coloration like that. So it's such a stark contrast between the white and the red. And I know this octopus, he picked a really cool shell to live in. I actually have
Yeah.
some wide angle shots of him. And he has since disappeared, but he was very photogenic. Josh is the only one that I know of who got him doing whatever display this is meant to be. And I've not quite seen a picture of it like that before, or
So
of a common octopus like that before.
I've seen octopus doing this, but I don't think I've seen it as well photographed as this because he'd set up with this very selective lighting, and as a result, I think because you don't see the background apart from the shell, I think it really makes that two tone stand out. And then I think he's also caught the peak of the two tone
Yeah,
because
yeah,
sometimes you see them do this. You go, "Well, I should take a photo," and by the time you take a photo, the difference between the two halves has faded a little bit. So it's still there, but it's not as peak as this, which I think is really nice. We see it more commonly in the cuttlefish.
yeah,
Certainly, like the species we get in the UK, you'll often get a male guarding a female, and on one side he'll be showing off all his sexy stuff, like "Oh, aren't I handsome and look good looking?" And then the other side he's showing, which is the side the female's on. And then the other side, if another male comes along, he'll show all his "Go away, I'm a big tough male" stuff, which I think is you see quite commonly. But it doesn't tend to have such a strong line down the middle. You just have two
yeah,
very different patterns on the two sides of the cuttlefish.
yeah.
Right.
I would love to know what this octopus was intending to signal, and obviously there's no way of knowing. But it's really cool to have such a graphic delineation between the two halves.
Yeah. Right. I mean, I certainly in the cuttlefish, it's where they want to send a different message in two directions.
Yeah, yeah,
But I don't know if that's the case here. It may just be part of that whole, octopus just doing weird stuff to confuse
yeah,
potential
yeah, maybe.
predators, or it's just the fact that octopus is like, oh, another one of those dumb humans again. I'll do this to mess them around because they're not as
Yeah.
intelligent as us. Um, so right, let's roll on to the next one. And we're now into the UK with a picture from Ryan Stalker 9, and the location for this is Porthcerris, which is a dive site in the far end of Cornwall, which is the bottom left hand tip of the UK.
Yeah, so it's another octopus, obviously.
Mm,
When I first scrolled by this one on Instagram, I didn't stop for it because I was like, oh, that's I didn't actually know
it's
what
the
it was.
pattern.
Yeah, and then well camouflaged. And then when you look at it, you're like, oh, that's really
Mm,
cool. And I love pictures where the animal takes up most of the frame or all of the frame, and you're relying on the textures, the patterns, the colors of the animal versus surroundings to make the image. And this one does, it fills 95% of the frame. And I love all the textures on him. I love all the different coloration.
mm,
And he's well camouflaged against himself because, like I said, you can just
mm,
scroll by this and not actually realize what you're looking at, because he
mm,
looks so un-octopus like.
mm. And these two are the same species, aren't they?
Yeah, well, as we were discussing off
Yeah.
camera, it seems that they are the same species.
They're both
Um,
classified as Octopus vulgaris, although
yeah,
this guy is pretty much full grown for your area, and he's probably this big.
yeah, he might be, his head is probably the size of an orange, maybe, so much,
Yeah,
much smaller.
and this thing is like
Yeah,
this.
yeah,
So yeah, it's very cool. For those that 2025, we've had a large number of of these what we call Mediterranean octopus, but they're actually Octopus vulgaris, coming into the south and particularly southwest corner of the UK in really large numbers, and they've grown really, really large. And usually in cold water things grow slower, but they often live longer. So I suspect that these have actually overwintered in the UK. I've not read any science about it other than people, well, fishermen and divers both commenting on how many octopus there are this year. Um, and Porthcerris, which is a shore dive down in Cornwall, and it's an easterly facing shore dive, so it's protected from the prevailing westerly wind, so it's a popular shore dive site, has had the most sightings, and certainly the most sightings in good conditions for photography. So lots and lots of photographers have been going to that same dive site to get photos of the octopus. And I've seen plenty of people saying that they've had multiple octopus out and about all together on the same dives there. So it's been really productive for everyone, and really cool to see. I think this is a really nice angle as well that Ryan has taken. I really love the textures on the bell or the nose coming
yeah.
towards us. I think that looks really great, and the eye contact is really strong. I don't like as much the rest of the frame as you were kind of sort of stumbling with in terms of how much is really octopus and how much isn't. I think a slightly tighter crop of this might be more effective. I do really like everything from the bottom up to the eyes, but above that, I think there's less interesting texture. So just a slightly tighter crop, I think, would give this more and more punch. But it's very cool, and also a really nice bit of story from this year in the UK. Why this species, which used to be incredibly rarely seen in the UK, is suddenly everywhere. There could be lots of reasons for it, but the fact that our water is so much warmer than usual, and this is a southern species, those two things, seem to be very correlated, and there be good causation in that correlation as well. So I suspect it's sadly a sign of our seas changing.
It's
But what a fantastic bonus to get with warming seas.
it's interesting though because over here, our water this year is colder at this time than it should be,
Mm,
and we have way more octopus that like we get decent numbers of octopus every year here, and especially like March through
mm.
now. But this year you can see 30 or 40 on on a dive at Blue Heron without really looking for them that hard,
Oh wow.
which is crazy. And the water is
Mm,
still much colder than it by 4, 5, 6 degrees
Mm.
than it normally is this time of year, which is, I don't know. Again, there might not be a correlation. Maybe there is a correlation. It could just be a boom year for them. I don't know. Um,
Yeah, I
but
would
it's
imagine
interesting
that
to know
because the water's so much warmer there, they push through their life cycle very quickly there, whereas
yeah,
in the colder water here, they're likely living longer.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. So
but
maybe
yeah,
it's that the colder
yeah,
water is helping them live longer. I don't know.
yeah. But when we're also very much the absolute northern limit of the species,
Yeah,
so a bit of warming helps that species push further north,
yeah, for
and
sure.
then
For
yeah,
sure.
then some colder weather and it won't be right. Um, let's move on to shine underscore photography double underscore at the end there of this little. It looks like our brown shrimps, but I'm guessing
It's
this is
from
probably in Florida,
California.
isn't it? Oh,
It's
California.
California,
Yeah.
but I don't know what. I can't. Of course, I didn't think to look at what shrimp species it is. But we've talked about this,
There's not.
especially a lot lately. How much I enjoy animals in frames that are well camouflaged but still
Mm,
obvious. And I think this is a really good example of that. Like the shrimp it's blatant. It's not covered by anything. It's very easy to see, but it's also remarkably well camouflaged at the same time. And the off centerness of it. So the composition of it works really well for me.
yeah. No, I agree. I think it's the right way to shoot camouflaged animals. Where you can completely see them, but you can completely see the camouflage at the same time. You
Yeah.
get the impact from them, and I think that this frame as a whole is attractive because of these interesting textures. It's quite a coarse grain on the seabed. I guess it's quite a currenty area, so you haven't got your fine sand. You've got this kind of coarse, biogenic kind of broken shells and bits of urchin and things down there. And yeah, very cool, very nice little shot. A nice different type of shot to include. So yeah, I like this one. Okay, we're now above underscore thermocline, and we're at Rye Pier, and the fact that it's a leather jacket, and I'm pretty sure that this Rye Pier is in Australia, and if I had to guess, I think in Victoria, but I don't
Yeah.
remember.
Yeah.
But yeah, nice little one of these leather jackets. They probably have a different name in Australia because they
No, I
do.
think that's what I think they call them leather jackets there too. I don't know which species it is, but I thought it was a cool little scene. I like how
Mm,
the leather jacket kind of matches the sponges. You have the hair on the top of the sponge, and then you get to see the pier in the background. It
mm.
tells a little story, and I like how the animal is small in the frame while still being prominent. I think that's often a hard thing to do.
Yeah, it's a well composed image, isn't it?
Yeah,
There's
yeah,
nice depth to it. There's very nice balance in the frame, and it's the lighting is nice and subtle. It's not just blasted out full impact, and I think that slightly underlit foreground actually helps with the atmosphere.
yeah. I really like it, and it's a cool fish. The
Yep.
leather jackets or file fish in general are cool, and I think they're an under photographed uh, group because we have a ton of file fish here, and nobody, including me, ever photographs them. But if you take the time to watch them and look at them, they're really cool, and they probably deserve to be photographed more than they are.
Well, there's definitely a huge discrepancy in underwater photography between the number of photos you see of different species and how numerous those species are. And
Yeah,
many of the most numerous fish species, for example, you never ever see photos of, and super rare fish you see millions of photos of.
yeah,
So
yeah,
right, and I think again we were talking earlier in this episode about how nature photography competitions are often looking for photographers who are breaking new ground, and often that goes back to species, and there are some reasonably common species that you don't see shots of. Although I have to say I'm not overly convinced that just because you don't see loads of pictures of sergeant majors that wildlife photography competition is going to be like, oh wow, we never get
yeah.
sergeant majors. But at the same time, I do think there's a real lack of shots of many of the more common fish around. Right. Talking of rare fish, we're now heading to Goby Diver. And this photo, I can't tell you where it is. But I could if I pull my phone up, I guess, but I hadn't pointed at the screen to translate it. But it's a pair of, unsurprisingly, gobies.
Yeah.
So
So she specializes in gobies. Like, she's done a little goby book and things like that. And I know she and her husband spend most of their time in Lembe. I
Mm,
don't remember if this is where that one's from or if this one actually was in Japan. But her whole Instagram is just gobies, 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 gobies. And I'm not a big goby guy, but you go through her Instagram and you kind of feel yourself becoming a goby guy because there are some wild ones out there, and so many of them are pretty. Or a lot of them are still undescribed. A lot of them are haven't been seen or photographed before, or at least not seen or photographed well. And especially when they're displaying and mating and things like that, they are remarkably beautiful fish,
mm.
and so varied. And I don't know what species this is.
No,
I
I
don't.
don't.
This might have been an undescribed one, but it's a really, really cool fish. And the only unfortunate part is that the female is blocking the male a little bit, but you still get a feel for how cool a fish he is.
Well, I
It's a cool
guess that
behavior.
he's busy displaying to her. And so I think having her in the frame is important.
Yes. Yeah.
What's surprising about this is, I was kind of expecting it to be shot from a little bit further away and be a bit of a crop. And if that's, but the fact that there's so little depth of field in this picture, makes me think that probably isn't shot from too far away. It's probably more, it's a long focal length lens that's being used for this picture, and that's why she's out of focus. So probably this was quite close to the frame. And I guess if you are a Goby specialist photographer, you're probably diving with 200 mils of macro lens a lot of the
Yeah.
time,
Yeah.
or teleconverters on your macro lens and that sort of thing. And actually, while we're getting distracted through this episode, that's something I really miss on my Sony system, is having a good longer focal length macro lens. And what's frustrating is I can't just solve it with a teleconverter. Like on my Nikon, I could take my 1.7 times or 2 times teleconverter and put it on my 105 and have a 200 mil or a 180 mil if I wasn't traveling with my Sigma 150. And I think that's a frustration I have with my 90 mils on the Sony, is neither of them take the Sony teleconverter. And
Really?
yeah, no, not even the Tamron doesn't fit it either. It was on the
Huh.
Dexcam a while ago. Teleconverter, because the front element of it is designed for telephoto lenses, so it sticks
Oh,
forwards.
it bulges out.
Yeah, and it's also why like the Sony 50 to 150, you can't put a teleconverter on it either. Not that you use it underwater, but I think that's a frustration. Yes, you can buy the Kenko one, but for me, macro is so about quality, image quality. I'm not that willing to put something together just for focal length, because also
Yeah.
when you go to a longer focal length macro lens, chances are you're shooting through more water anyway. And then if you've got a bit of ropiness in the optics of the lens setup, it's not a good recipe. So, I'm looking for a good longer focal length solution. So I'm going to
Well,
see what comes this year.
I know how much you love adapters, and you could always put the old Canon 180 macro on the Metabones.
Yeah, it's not going to happen. Yeah, I could start focusing it now for when I get
Yeah.
to the Red Sea next week. See if it's got there by the time I arrive. Okay, let's swiftly move on to Daniel Botello, photographer, with a beautiful oceanic white tip.
Yeah. And these guys are just they're beautiful sharks. I really look forward to the day I get to, swim with them. And this is just a perfect portrait of one, in my opinion. You have really nice calm water. The shark is lit perfectly, great eye contact. And I love the little bit of space between the dorsal fin and the dorsal fin's reflection.
Mm.
I think that's really, really cool. And Daniel's got a whole bunch of unique shark stuff because he's had some really cool opportunities. And but this is just a beautiful portrait of a beautiful shark.
Yeah, I don't know if he's still shooting. I remember probably 8 years ago or so, and he did a song about sharks because he likes them a lot. And I remember that he was kind of, you'd see his pictures in magazines and stuff. But I don't know if he's had a family or got other interests or what. But I haven't really seen his pictures at all around recently.
Yeah,
So I
I mean,
don't know
he's
if he's
still
still doing.
posting underwater stuff, but it seems like a lot of it's repeats of
Yeah, I don't
older
think this is
images.
a new picture.
Yeah.
This is Cat Island, but I'm not sure any operator went to Cat Island this year.
Yeah, I don't know actually.
Yeah, I'm not sure. But I'm guessing this is Cat Island, that deep blue, the calm
Yeah.
surface waters. It's very typical of Cat Island. So yeah, but a really nice shot. Right, and now we are on M Pop Photography, and a picture of some sort of crocodilian.
It's
If I had
I
to
think
guess, maybe is it a Cuban crocodile?
it's some sort of caiman. I can't remember if it's
Oh,
black
okay.
caiman or spectacled caiman. I think it's spectacled caiman because
Oh, it
black
looks like
caimans
it's
are
got
easier.
specs, doesn't it? Yeah, it's got
Um,
the wings and
yeah,
the
so
eyes.
I think it's
Oh, from
spectacled
Brazil.
from Brazil. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's Michael O'Neill. I think he's Brazilian. And
Oh
every
yeah,
once
no,
in a while,
he's just yeah. Sorry, now so I was reading if I'd worked out who it was. Yeah,
yeah,
he is Brazilian. I mean, lives
yeah,
in Florida like you, but
yeah,
he's
yeah,
Brazilian originally.
yeah,
And I know he's been in Brazil shooting this year.
yeah.
I think he had a picture of some Oscars, the freshwater fish,
Yep,
and I'd never
yep.
seen a picture of those in the wild before that I remember. No, that I remembered seeing.
Well, what's significant about that is there's pictures of them from here, but they're not native here. So seeing one from where it's supposed to be is unique and unusual. If you
Mm.
go down in South Florida, every waterway has those tiger Oscars and all those other weird fish that
Oh,
aren't supposed to be here but are cool. But this is the first picture I can recall seeing a spectacled caiman underwater. And he doesn't shoot much locally anymore. So it's
mm,
cool to see when he travels that he still shoots underwater.
mm.
But and it looks this picture makes it feel like you are on the menu, which I think is really cool because it's
Yeah,
an intimidating. I don't know how big. I mean,
they're
spectacled
not
caimans
that
get
big.
decent sized.
Yeah,
Yeah, like probably 6, 7 feet max. But it the aesthetic of it makes it seem like it could be
yeah,
much
and
much
the
bigger.
teeth are big. Yeah, the teeth are big.
Yeah, and the teeth are plenty big. They'll do
Yeah,
damage if they get you. But a really really cool animal and just an intimidating picture. And I like the fact that he didn't mess with the white balance and just left it as that kind
mm,
of tannic aesthetic to it,
yeah,
instead of trying to make it blue or make the underside of the caiman white, because I think that tells the story about where these guys actually live.
yeah, yeah. Yeah. I like the whole shot. I don't think they are that white anyway, naturally.
I think they're
Um,
yellowy, but
yeah, yeah. But yeah, very cool. And very dramatic shot with
yeah.
this thing. And because it's missing a bit of its top lip, you can see even more teeth than normal.
Yep.
Just because, they've already got their teeth on the outside. So why not have even more view of the teeth? Right, that was our last one, I think.
Yep.
So thank you everyone for watching that episode. Hope you enjoyed our ramble around those images. I know that it's always good for us to go a bit off topic as well, because quite interesting stuff comes up during these episodes. And we'll be back again soon with another episode of the Underwater Photography Show.